welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favourite stories of all time, Dalek, written by Rob Sherman, one of the best writers for the Big Finish audio dramas, making his, I believe it's his only television script, and is directed by Joel Aheron, who is easily a contender for one of the best Doctor Who directors. Both of them making their first debut, or at least Rob Sherman's TV debut to Doctor Who. As Joel heard, this is his first experience. Now, this story had a lot to live up for. For you see, Doctor Who, specifically the Daleks, had a bit of a reputation back in 2005. Yes, they were part of the popular culture and the popular mindset, but more for laughs and silliness, especially when it comes with the Daleks, with almost every comedian under the sun in the 90s and early 2000s mentioning the fact that Daleks cannot go upstairs, that they, and how ridiculous the whole concept is. So Rob Sherman and Russell T Davies and Joel Ahern basically set off to make the Daleks as scary and as horrifying as possible. And that is also brings in into another point. This story isn't actually the original context of this story. This is actually an adaptation of sorts from Rob Sherman's previous work, Jubilee, a Sixth Doctor and Evelyn Smythe audio drama in which the Doctor encounters a lone Dalek in a cage. But apart from that, there's very little that connects with them. With that story being about how the Daleks' consciousness and how the Doctor's horrified by the fact that the Daleks have been taking such like a silly despite them being these threatening demeanour. Something how British used to treat the Nazis after World War II. They were always the butt of the joke. But here we couldn't do that because this is supposed to be introducing the Daleks to a new generation of audience viewers. And not only that, but also intensifying those feelings with some really hard scenes of the Daleks just being menacing as possible. So that's the Dalek story that we go into. However, that's not the only story we're going to be talking about, or at least that'll be the story that we talk about the majority for, as in 2020 during the Doctor Who lockdown event, in which because of COVID-19 putting the UK under lockdown and the government under putting us into lockdown, to keep Doctor Who fans intrigued, invested, something to really pass the time. A lot of Doctor Who creators created small little shorts building up to these re-watches where a bunch of fans would watch episodes all at the exact same time, with running commentary by creators and all that. It was a lot of fun. Specifically now we're talking about one for the Dalek story, a prequel called Steve and the Scarf, written and directed by Andrew Ireland. And it's nothing really worth mentioning, really. It's just a fun little gag, in a sense, in which this one of Henry Van Statten's employees is looking into an item that has been found, which has been exposed to time travel, space and time for at least 7 years, revealing it to be the Fourth Doctor's scarf. And we get some small little jokes about all the little things that are on there, like there was like a little part of a shell from the Ark in Space, or it could just be bubble wrap. There's a little bit of a cactus which gets dropped, and when the character picks it up, it's like, oh, that was almost a mega loss, which is just so cringy. There's also a little bit of Eldrad. Eldrad must live. Sorry, I don't know why I said that. And it all builds up really to the final, where the character states that Henry Van Staten has got a new living specimen, as we see a silhouette of a Dalek being carried away into its cage, building up for the episode The Dalek. Now, right, so let's now get into the story, because Stephen the Scarf, it was all right. I could have easily done without. We could have easily had a much better short. It was mainly just made for fun and giggles, and it's harmless in a sense, but it's nothing that I could really recommend. But it's free on YouTube, so there's that. So anyway, Dalek starts with the Doctor and Rose following a distress signal that lands them in 2012's museum of Henry Van Staten, a billionaire who actually owns the internet, in a sense. And he's been keeping all of this alien technology. And right off the bat, we get some perfect direction, some really gorgeous work. As one of the artifacts in this museum is a Cyberman invasion helmet. And as soon as the Doctor notices it, he stands right up to witness it. And the silhouette of the Cyberman in the reflection of the mirror, in the glass, is perfectly in line with the Doctor's face, which basically it's like reflecting how the Doctor, thanks to the war and stuff, has become almost Cyberman-like. Not exactly a Cyberman, but a ghost of his former self. And the Doctor states it's like this is something which used to terrify people. The stuff of nightmares reduced to an exhibit. I'm getting old. To see a Cyberman head in a Ninth Doctor story is just so... It's a fan-pleasing moment, and that's probably one of the first times where you really need a bit of a context for it. That it's like, that's a Cyberman. But it still works if you don't know what a Cyberman is. Clearly, when I watched this back in 2005, I knew what a Cyberman was. Watching that scene, I was like a kid on a sugar rush. Probably because I was, at the time, a kid on a sugar rush. Like, oh my god, that is cool. That is awesome. Before the Doctor triggers an alarm, setting some soldiers onto them, as they get caught and get sent to Henry Van Staten, the guy who owns this. And right off the bat, he is played as the character you love to hate. I especially love the thing is like one of the characters is talking to him and he just goes, no, it's not, you're fired. What? Take him away, wipe his memories, send him somewhere, Meropolis, Latus, somewhere beginning with M, or something like that. I really love that scene. And that probably the most iconic line is, how did they get in? In through the window. In through the window, that was funny, people. That bit is iconic. And he gets introduced to the Doctor in a scene in which he has a portrait of himself in the background. Like it was like an aeroplane or in The Naked Gun, like a really silly comedy. But it's played up seriously. He's just a character who loves himself. But you can believe that he is a person like this. He's true to himself. He justifies himself in that he's doing this to explore. He's doing this to see the universe in a sense, as he keeps all of the space stuff in his museum, in which he can really he doesn't really even show off. He just has it for himself, which is not really then a museum. It's just like sort of basement in a sense, a warehouse, I guess. But there you go. And the scene gets intensified as he mentions the basement near the cage. This cage contains his one living specimen. Would you like to see, Doctor? As the Doctor then goes down into the basement, presumably trying to find the person who sent the distress signal. As Rose teams up with the character of Adam, basically a secretary, a young genius boy who is a bit of a show-off and is a bit of a dork in a sense, and he's like fascinated with all this alien technology, and he really wants to examine the universe. Whilst Rose is kind of awkward because she knows that it's all real and it's all possible. Now, a lot of criticisms has gone towards Adam as a character. I think in this story, in Dalek anyway, not that he's a great character, not that he's interesting at all, but he's harmless. He plays the role of this story. He plays what his role in this story to a T. It doesn't really differentiate in that. You don't really care about him per se as a character, but his function in the plot is acceptable, and he's okay enough that he's not annoying. We'll get more onto Adam when we talk about the next story, as he would be a semi-companion of sorts in a way, which would become a little bit of a common theme in the first series of the new series. So the Doctor goes down into the basement, and of course the scene that you've all been building up to, the one that we've been begging for, is the introduction of the Dalek. It's one of those scenes which is, again, perfectly directed. I love how when we go into the cage, it's literally covered in shadow. You only see the blue light, only one light, and the Doctor's I'm sorry about Henry Van Staten. He thinks he's a genius, but he's not. I'm the Doctor. I'm here to help. And then you just see the lights, the two lights. Doctor, the Doctor. You are an enemy of the Daleks! You must be destroyed! That, and the lights come on at the same time. Now, this story gives the Dalek justice as soon as you appears on the screen. Let's take an example of this Dalek story compared to the previous Ed Dalek story, Remembrance of the Daleks with Sylvester McCoy. As great as that story is, there are a few, especially when the Doctor sees a Dalek for the first time, and even though there are a lot the Doctor's warning everybody, is the Dalek is this horrible thing, you can't reason with the Dalek, it must be destroyed and stuff. The Doctor himself as a character plays the Daleks for a laugh. In that story, when he comes up with a plan to destroy a Dalek, he whistles, it's hello, Dalek, it's me. What's the matter? Don't you recognise your mortal enemy? And then there's also a scene in which he puts his hat over the Dalek's eye and he tells him just to shut up. The Doctor himself, he's battled Daleks so many times that it's also become a joke, which is something which I think has hurt their reputation as monsters of Doctor Who. The Ninth Doctor's reaction to seeing a Dalek is literally clambering up to the door, banging on. It's let me out, quick, let me out, please, it's going to kill me. The Doctor is terrified, absolutely terrified of this creature. Until it's revealed, of course, that this gun doesn't work, as this is a very damaged Dalek. Now, another thing to note about this is that this story introduces Of course, not to us, who's been tackling these stories in chronological ordering, and these designs have appeared in the Time War and the War Doctor box sets. But in terms of like real life, this was the introductions of the commonly known Bronze Dalek, which would become the main Dalek designs of the revived series, despite attempts of trying to update the design. They are, it's easily, in my opinion, the best Dalek design. It looks metallic, it looks like a piece of war engineering, it looks threatening, it looks precise, and it's everything that you want from a Dalek design, but it's also got that class, that iconography of a Dalek, which fits it perfectly. And it's one of those moments where I've heard a lot of people, not that I disagree, I mean, I do kind of disagree, but I can easily understand their point in that they think that the Daleks, after this story, should not be redesigned. Just keep these designs forever. Don't bother redesigning them. They're perfect as they are. And I think as well what makes this design particularly favourable to fans is their introduction story, especially their first two stories in season 1. With this story, with only one Dalek set up against a bunch of people and just showing its menace, it's just a fantastic way to introduce us to a new Dalek, a new design for the series. It just works. It just works. The Doctor has this really great intense scene, starting off joyously, almost in vain, just like beating the Dalek down. It's like, if you can't kill Dalek, what's the point of you? Huh? What's the point of a Dalek that can't kill? Until slowly it's revealed that this Dalek, like the Doctor, is the last of its kind. This creature, this Dalek, was the one who sent the signal because it was a soldier and it's trying to get orders from its Dalek higher-ups. But it turns out all the Daleks at this point in time have been destroyed. Destroyed due to the last moments of the Time War, in which both Daleks and Time Lords were wiped out. And there's a lot of parallels between the Doctor and this Dalek, sorry. The Dalek even points out it's like they are the same. And the Doctor gets really pissed at this. It's like, no, we're not the same. We're not the... And he thinks to himself, like, wait a minute. Yeah, maybe you're right. Because I know what needs to happen. I know what I must do. Exterminate. And he pulls the lever, electrocuting, torturing the Dalek. Basically, this is the Doctor. He's like, I've given up any hope on the Daleks. They got to be destroyed. There is no hope of them maturing. And Henry Van Staten, being like the egotistical maniac as he is, stops the Doctor. And after realising that he's a Time Lord, he is himself an alien, basically captures the Doctor, rips off his shirt and ties him up and scans his insides, revealing that he has two hearts. This scene is not only a great scene, it's a controversial scene because in a sense, and just purely on the story, we'll get on to like the real world ramifications of this later on, but in terms of the story itself, it's a really great scene. It shows just basically how far Henry Van Staten would go. To where he's like, he basically brags, and the Doctor kind of gets his philosophy on how it works, and to see the Doctor in such a helpless state is just so. It's just so sad. Now, it would be a dishonest if we didn't talk about the real world ramifications of this scene. Christopher Eccleston at the time was having a real bad personal life. In fact, he suffers from anorexia, in which he suffers with his body image, and he just hates his weight and makes himself doesn't like to eat and makes himself sick to make him think. That's the best of my knowledge of anorexia, and knowing that he was suffering from this horrible mental illness during this scene must have been absolutely hard for him. And it is really, really sad to know that in a show that we all love and an actor that we all enjoy watching, that this scene must have given him absolute torment and absolute hell. It's really, and I'm sad to say that I can't really put much onto the topic apart from really just bringing it up. But I just want to state that just because it was in a scene that I like, in a story that I enjoyed, especially growing up, especially in the first time, doesn't justify putting someone through such a horrible state, especially in a horrible set of mind. Whether the producers and the production team knew about Christopher Eccleston's anorexia, sorry, I'm struggling to pronounce it. That I'm not quite sure, but he suffered through it, and yeah, there's no justification for that. There's no going into the story and trying to be like, well, maybe it was good because blah 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 blah. No, all I can really say is that I hope that Christopher Eccleston gets some sort of vindication, gets some sort of closure, of happiness, knowing that his suffering brought us some great stories, some great characters, and allowed a viewing audience to connect to his doctor, to his character, a lot more. And I just hope Eccleston is okay, because he just seems like such a lovely lad, especially when he's taking the mick out of people in Heathrow Park. His Twitter account is hilarious. So anyway, going back into the story, Rose gets accidentally touches the Dalek, resurrecting it, taking its DNA, her DNA, and basically rejuvenating it. It once kills this character by crushing his mouth with the sucker, which is one of the things that a lot of people criticised, or at least joked about the Daleks with their plunger arm, but here it's actually shown to kill. There's also a scene in which it shows to calculate all of the buttons to try and get the passcode, a password, so that it can get through the door, and he does it in 10 seconds flat. He also uses it to smash into a screen, rejuvenating itself with the electricity, and also absorbing the internet so it knows everything about human technology and human history and human understanding. And so it goes on basically a chase around the building for Rose, and we get some really gorgeous scenes. Let's start off with the stairs. Now, this isn't the first time in Doctor Who canon that the Daleks have been shown to fly. In fact, the previous televised Dalek story, Remembrance of the Daleks, was actually the first story in televised appearances to show a Dalek levitate up the stairs. However, two issues with that. One, that seems incredibly abrupt and short. And the second is that story was hardly it's a great story, highly recommend it, but it was hardly seen by anybody, and nobody really talks about it. But here they made a huge effort. The characters go upstairs. The Dalek just sits there, stares at them, helpless, and a soldier is like, right, we demand that you go back to your cage. What we did was wrong, but killing stops now. And Adam is gloating. He's like, oh, look at you, great big space dustbin, and you got defeated by a flight of stairs. How does it feel? And the Dalek just stares at them and just goes, levitate, elevate, as it slowly rises with the music, emphasizing the danger. It's like, nope, the stairs are not going to save you now. The Daleks have conquered their one weakness as it flies up the stairs and shoots the soldier as Rose and Adam escape. The direct Joel Anderson's directing is just so goddamn stunning. In fact, fun fact, my favourite video on YouTube, without a doubt, easily my favourite video that I've ever seen on YouTube, is actually Joel Ahern talking to Mr. TARDIS Reviews about his episode Dalek, and they actually have like an half an hour discussion about just purely his directing. That's it. And it's just perfect. And he goes into detail about like how some of these shot works, the difficulties of them, and how they work telling this story. And it just shows the amount of passion, the amount of details that get missed with the camera movement, the placing of actors, the cropping of the shots, just stuff that people take lightly when it comes to TV and movie. And it's something that a lot of people, a handful of people, are really passionate about, and it's something which this story made me fall in love with the camera in a sense, because of just the way it tells its story visually. Speaking of telling its story visually, we get now another scene in which another scene in which Rose and Adam get chased by the Dalek, only to be caught up by a handful of soldiers. One of them is a bit braggy, he's a leader, and he's like, right, one robot against a handful of humans. It's a no contest. The humans are going to win. And the Dalek then appears as they all start firing, and the directing is absolutely stunning here. One of easily my favourite shot is one where you see a soldier firing, and then the camera pans to show the Dalek levitating. And this also is where Rob Sherman knows how to write for Daleks in terms of their threatening level, as the Dalek just doesn't just go bam, 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 dead. The Dalek sees a fire alarm, shoots it, which sets the sprinklers off, meaning all the metal in the area is now conductive, and then it shoots onto the floor, killing everybody on the floor level. As everybody up on the balcony witnesses, and it's like, right, we have no hope in hell. Quick, run, get out of here! And the Dalek shoots then the railings, killing everyone there. There is no hope in hell that these people are going to survive the Daleks. There's only one way they even stand a chance. Closing the bulkhead doors, leaving Adam and Rose down in the basement. And the way the story does a great job of weighing the consequences in the Doctor's mind, and he's programming the computer to do this thing, and he's like, you can see it in his face. There's a great zoom up on Sylvester McCoy. What am I on about? There's a great zoom up on Christopher Eccleston's eyes whilst he's weighing the decision to close the bulkhead doors now or give a little bit of time for Rose, which might leave enough time for the bulkhead doors energy to deplete and allowing the Dalek to come upstairs. And so the Doctor presses the button and Rose gets stuck. And the story is so good. This story is so good. As the Doctor listens in, he's like, Rose, did you make it? Rose, are you there? Sorry, Doctor. I guess I wasn't quick enough. I just want you to remember that it wasn't your fault, okay? She looks up, and it cuts to the Doctor's face. Exterminate! They killed her. She's dead. She was only here because of me. And I had a chance of killing it. But Henry Van Staten, you stopped me. And then the Doctor gets on this massive rant. When it comes to rage, when it comes to just pure anger and hatred, I don't think there was any other actor who's played the Doctor who has perfected this role as much as Christopher Eccleston. Hands down, I don't think there's even a comparison. Christopher Eccleston is the best at showing the Doctor at his rage. It's just, you feel every moment of it. Even though it's kind of a cop-out because Rose is alive at the end of the day. In a great moment, the Dalek is questioning itself. It's absorbed Rose's DNA and is slowly mutating into a sort of human hybrid, and it's got feelings and emotions like a human. It doesn't like... it feels like it doesn't want to kill Rose anymore. It doesn't want to kill anymore. It's changing into something different. Now, you could argue that this plot point could be used to keep Rose alive. It doesn't really make much sense that the Daleks would have a mechanism which would alter their DNA because, the whole thing is about purity. So why do they even have a system which would allow them to slowly become the person they absorb? That doesn't really make much sense. But the story makes up for that with the idea that this process, the Dalek is in absolute agony. Not in a, like it's in a physically pain sort of way, as in more emotionally. It hates the fact. It's a Dalek. It's supposed to kill. It's supposed to keep the Daleks. It hates the fact that it's becoming something other than a Dalek. It's, it's all about its purity complex. It hates everything that's not a Dalek, and now it's slowly becoming not a Dalek. It doesn't understand. It hates the fact that it can't just kill Rose. It hates the fact that it's got these other feelings. And this is a representation, the political stance of the story is how fascism, because, Daleks are a representation of Nazis. They're essentially space Nazis. And how that ideology, that stance, when it's tampered with, when you are suddenly in a position of not being the highest of their form, then it leads to self-loathing, to self-hatred. And it all culminates in one of the greatest endings to a Doctor Who story of all time, in my opinion. As the Dalek gets taken to this empty room, and it basically begs to just see the light one more time. That's all it's asking now. It doesn't want to kill, it doesn't want to hurt, it just wants to see the light. It just wants freedom. And the Dalek's casing actually opens up, and we see the Dalek mutant in it. And a huge shout out to the props and the effects department, because that's easily the best looking Dalek mutant in the entire series. I mean, sure, that was a very low bar to begin with, but this prop just looks so... It looks so real as well. It's scary. And the Doctor gets caught up with them. He catches up to them and is holding a gun towards the Dalek, which is also towards Rose, because Rose is in the way. And the Doctor's like, move out the way, I need to kill it. It destroyed my people, my home. The Daleks must be destroyed. And Rose is like, no, don't. It's changing. It's becoming something better. It's becoming something. Just look at it. And it's just there, just enjoying the sunlight. And the Doctor's like, what's it doing? And when Rose basically states, like, it couldn't kill Henry Van Staten, it couldn't kill me, it's changing. Christopher Eccleston's delivery, where he's trying to tell Rose, like, trying to justify, but he can't. He keeps, like, stuttering over his own words. Rose, I couldn't. And Christopher Eccleston's just such an emotional... It's so goddamn perfect. It's... If I did ratings, I don't do ratings, but if I did ratings, this story, in my opinion, is a 10 out of 10. It's that good. There's no flaw with it, in my opinion. And that scene said, especially like what leads up to, as the Doctor basically tells Rose, it's like, I'm sorry. And Rose is like, isn't this better? Not for the Dalek. As the Dalek demands Rose to give it an order. To order it to die. I just realised I didn't talk about the you would make a good Dalek scene. God, there's just so much to talk about in this story. It's just so... Right, I'm going to talk about that scene because I really want to talk about that scene. After the scene in which the Dalek sets the sprinklers off and kills everybody, it opens up a channel towards the Doctor, a video channel towards the Doctor, basically Skyping. Oh my God, it's Skyping. It's in the episode in 2012. There's Skyping. Never thought of it like that. And the Dalek's basically explaining that he used the internet to scan the sky, to scan space, to try and find other Daleks, but it found nothing. And it's like, where will I get my orders? I need orders. And the Doctor just turns to it and is like, you want orders? Okay, here's one. Kill yourself. Why? You're the last of yourself. The Dalek philosophy has failed. Why don't you get rid of the stench? Why don't you just die? And it's just a moment of silence. Until the Daleks... Oh, by the way, the Dalek here is voiced by Nicholas Briggs in his first television appearance. He voiced the Daleks in the audio dramas. So that's a very great connection there. And the Dalek just goes, you would make a good Dalek. And then turns the screen off. And the Doctor's just there in awe of just how like, oh God, the Dalek is, oh, that scene. It's this story, there's so much good. I've missed like a tons of scenes, I will admit, but go watch it. It's just fantastic. So Rose then commands the Dalek to die, to kill itself. The Dalek asks, is she afraid? She says yes. And the Dalek's like, so am I. Until we actually find out what the balls on the Dalek's casing do as they open up and creates like a shielding as the Dalek destroys itself, explodes. And the Doctor and Rose talk outside the TARDIS. Adam comes running in and is like, we need to get out of here now. They're filling up the place with cement. so that nobody else will get in. Come on, we got to get out. But Rose is like, Adam wants to see the stars. Let's go and show him the stars. The Doctor's originally like, Rose, he's a bit pretty. He's a bit silly, a bit stupid, a bit weak, and he left you down there to die. But Rose insists, and so the Doctor lets Adam on board the TARDIS, leading into the next story. And that's Dalek. In my opinion, it is the best Dalek story of any medium. It is the quintessential Daleks. In fact, a confession, prior to watching this story, despite me like watching most of the classic stories on VHS, I was never a fan of the Daleks personally. Sure, I liked stories like Genesis, Destiny, Revelations, all the great Dalek stories, but I was never personally what you would consider like a fan of the Daleks. I understand that they were a very popular monster, but they weren't like one of my favourites until this story came out. Until this one brought the Daleks in my generation and Rob Sherman, the fantastic writer he is, goes, here we go, the Daleks are back, and they're back with a vengeance. But it's not just the Dalek as well. The whole confrontation with the Ninth Doctor as well is perfectly great. And the Dalek's relationship with Rose and how it's contaminated and Rose is trying to get to its better side is also really, really great. Really great storytelling. It's probably one of the best acted stories. It's easily by far the best directed story of the series. Hands down, no contest. This story just deserves to be watched, I just can't put it into words. I tell you what, it is the Terminator 2 Judgment Day of Doctor Who. Perfect. That's all I can say, really. That's all that I can say about this story. And it's sad to me to say, but that's Dalek. So join me next time when the Doctor, Rose, and new companion Adam go into the future as they get caught up in a conspiracy about fake news. That's a bit relevant for now. So join me next time for The Long Game. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!